Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bolt. Now, I do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but I don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. I'm just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. And this is especially important today because what I'm going to be talking about today are just my opinions. They are not the official position of the HBAR Foundation. Also important is none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So we have a lot of really good stuff I want to get into today, but there's also a controversy within the Hedera ecosystem, and it surrounds compensation. So I'm going to start off by giving some context. What essentially happened was it appears as if some Hedera community members did some digging on the public hash graph or the Hedera hash graph and found the distribution account for the HBAR Foundation. And they found that some of the top brass, some of the top people, or what appears to be some of the top executives within the HBAR Foundation get significant HBAR compensation. The accounts are just sending from this HBAR distribution account to what appears to be individual executive accounts. And it's to the tune to several 100,000 HBAR per month. More recently, it's even been over 1 million HBAR per month. So if it's several 100,000, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in HBAR. If it's over 1 million, we're talking about over $100,000 in HBAR compensation alone. Now, I think we can assume, but we don't know for sure, that this is on top of cash compensation benefits and so forth. In my opinion, this is overcompensation. I think this is too much, but I don't think it isn't just isolated to the HBAR Foundation. This is across all of the official entities within Hedera and more broadly the crypto space. I think all of these official entities at these different foundations probably get similar token compensation. So CoinDesk, Cointelegraph, before you go off on Hedera, this is an issue throughout all of crypto. So how does this become a cultural issue? I think there was a post that was put up, and I hate to point this one out, but it really does go to the culture that can be formed. And it was a post from one of the Swirlds Labs employees, and it said, guys, everything will be okay. It's just magic internet money, and life is just magic. And I can understand this, trying to keep this positive. She is a positive person, so I understand saying something like that. And it's true. I mean, we have created these tokens out of thin air. But as soon as they've been used as the funding mechanism to build out these decentralized ecosystem and money is taken from individuals and investors, then it takes on a whole new framework. It represents the potential of these networks. The token represents the potential of these networks. It represents the hopes and dreams in that potential, and it represents those investors themselves. So once we've gotten to that point, we have to treat these tokens with reverence. And I know we work in these regulatory gray areas. We don't even really know legally or from a regulatory standpoint what these tokens are yet. Are they commodities? Are they securities? Are they something completely new? Are they currencies? I think they're something completely new, and for them to function properly, they certainly can't be securities, but I think new frameworks need to be established. But once those are established, I think being able to continue to build out these ecosystems by distributing these tokens is essential. I think that is going to happen. But when it does happen, these tokens need to be respected by everybody involved. Now, I think it would be remiss for me at this point not to reveal what my compensation is. I am paid by the HBAR Foundation. I am so thankful that I've had the opportunity to be able to support my family while at the same time being able to have these fantastic conversations and essentially be at the center of the Hedera ecosystem, listening to all the fantastic stories about how this ecosystem is progressing. And I'm compensated all in cash. I am a contractor, so I don't get any benefits. I don't get any additional HBAR compensation, and I am compensated with $10,000 a month every month, so $120,000 a year. But some of these additional HBAR compensations exceed what I make in a year in a single month. So going back and getting into some Hedera history, I've also invested in the space. I had a long career working offshore, and I invested some of that hard-earned capital within the Hedera ecosystem. to the tune of about $200,000 now. And I did it from SAFT 3. I did it mainly as a retail investor, buying all the way through the bottom to 1 cent and so forth. And I also want to say, while I was in that last career, the last thing I was doing was I was building a couple ships over in Singapore. And I was having Hedera meetups over there with a gentleman named Mark. I'm not going to give you his last name, but he's a really smart guy and has been involved in the Hedera ecosystem from the beginning. The other person is a little bit more public. You may not recognize this name. It's Jason Lowe, and he was actually one of the original founders of the HBAR Foundation. He was originally on the board. He left about a year ago. I'm not sure exactly why he left, but he's no longer on the board of the HBAR Foundation. But we would have these really deep conversations. It started off, I think they were interviewing me to join Jordan Freed and manage HBAR.com. And it looked like that was going to happen, and then that kind of fell through. And I remember Jason at the time was going through and developing the idea of the HBAR Foundation. And he said, Brandon, don't worry about it. You're always going to have a place at the HBAR Foundation. And I remember going into what kind of a position would be good for me at the HBAR Foundation. And I brought up something as a community advocate, and that included as an HBAR advocate, because I wanted to make sure that the community, the HBAR holder, had representation at the highest levels within the HBAR Foundation, because I saw a potential that they might not have that representation. And in retrospect, I think that would have been a good position. Now, as fate would have it, I kind of fell into the same position that I was doing before. I was creating videos for the Hedera ecosystem. They saw that that's what I had been doing, so that's where they offered me a job within marketing. But I think things might have gone differently if I was holding a different position. So the next question is, how do we fix this? And I do think it makes sense to right-size compensation. And some people out there right now would be like, wait a second, if this is the same as what's happening at all these different foundations throughout crypto, isn't it already right-sized? Well, I think that Hedera has an opportunity to lead here. I want to make sure everybody is on par and is working in the same direction. The thumb for this space is, can interests within the Hedera ecosystem become aligned? Can we all be working together? And if you were to have somebody that's making, say, $300,000 a year, a professional, a doctor, a lawyer, somebody in management, and they're deciding to put $50,000 into HBAR every year. Right now, at these prices, they're getting $500,000 HBAR per year. But if an employee at one of these official entities is getting hundreds of thousands of HBAR per month, the investment profile is completely out of whack, even though they might have similar skills and expertise, albeit in different fields. They're completely different, right? So their exit strategy is completely different. What they look to as success is completely different. So we want to get those things in line. So we are going to need some kind of a template as to how do we compensate these people. One thing that was brought up by somebody in the community that I thought was a really good primer that we can use for compensation was the compensation of Doctors Without Borders. Now, this is a perfect entity because the people at the top of Doctors Without Borders have similar levels of education, similar levels of experience, again, albeit in a different field, but they're similar types of professionals that we would want running things like the HBAR Foundation, like the Hashgraph Association, like Swirlds Labs, and so forth. So I looked at these compensations, and these are from a few years ago. But as you can see, they're between $200,000 and $250,000. You adjust that for inflation, and we're looking in the mid-200s for these leadership positions. And then, in addition, I think there should be maybe a 20% HBAR kicker, right? An additional 20% in HBAR bonus, because we want all of these leaders to have skin in the game. But we want them to have the same skin in the game from a similar professional who's allocating their capital to this space. And I'm certainly not against having other incentives for maybe reaching certain milestones. You could have HBAR bonuses for breaking into the top 10 as far as coin market cap, reaching $100 million of fee revenue for the Hedera ecosystem ecosystem to be used to incentivize token holders, nodes, to continue to build out the ecosystem. $100 million of unsubsidized revenue would be significant. And then, of course, I think another huge milestone would be once we are completely sustainable, once the fees cover the cost of all of these entities and can incentivize node operators and token holders. At that point, another HBAR bonus would make sense, but it should still be reasonable, or what is thought of as reasonable. So right-sizing compensation, I think, is a good first step. Now, this next one is not prescriptive. I'm not saying that anybody has to do this. I think it should be fine that anybody who has gotten this compensation up until this point should keep those HBAR, right? Continue that motivation going forward. But I also think that take some of that HBAR and, as a show of good faith, put it into account 800. To the HBAR Foundation's credit, they are the only ones that have funded native staking to this point by putting HBAR into account 800. I've actually been a bit surprised that anybody can put funds into account 800, but the HBAR Foundation has been the only entity to do so. I think that some of the really big whales, some of the really big token holders would be willing to put some tokens into that account. Now, remember that it only takes about 160 million HBAR to fully fund that account for a year and maximize our rewards down from where they are right now at 0.3% up to 2%. And that would absolutely make a difference for token holders, for our DeFi ecosystem, for those that are getting revenue in HBAR, like our marketplaces and our wallets. I think that makes a difference. Some people look at 2% in the crypto space and they're like, that's not enough. And that might be true as well, but it certainly would make a difference. And while we're here, I might as well talk to the governing council as well. We started off at 6.5% for native staking rewards, and they dropped that down to 2%, and that has drifted lower because of the formula they use to determine what those native staking rewards are going to be. Now, I was surprised they did that in the context of starting to pay their board members $250,000 a year. Now, that might be reasonable for a Fortune 500 entity or a large business with billions of dollars worth of revenue, but Hedera does not have that revenue. Even for the transaction signers, they are paying $50,000. And to do that in the backdrop of dropping staking rewards down didn't make a lot of sense to me. I do think that 6.5% might be a bit much. In retrospect, it's more reasonable, and I think that's a great way to distribute tokens. But at least bringing it back up to 4%, I think would make a lot of sense. But I also see distributing tokens in that manner through native staking is a much more equitable way to do it. Instead of really large compensations for the people that are closest to the spigot, and then whatever they drop by the wayside, the rest of the ecosystem can pick up, I think it's much better to do that native staking so it is more widely distributed. So consider that. Consider increasing the staking rewards once again. Now, all of these prescriptive measures go out the window as soon as Hedera is profitable. Again, as soon as the fees that are coming in can cover all of the building that's going on in the ecosystem, can cover all of these entities' expenses, can cover incentivizing token holders and nodes, then all bets are off. You can use that 80% of fee revenue to pay the executives whatever you think is necessary. Now, this does bring me to one of the things people might say, there could be a brain drain if we reduce these compensations. I don't think that's the case. And here's why. There is so much passion in this space. There are so many people that build just because they love to build and love the potential of Hedera. I've seen so many times when people have left the official Hedera entities and they continue to build within the Hedera space. Some of that might be because they already have a big bag of HBAR and they want to see certain gaps filled within the Hedera ecosystem. But I think in a lot of cases, they know the Hedera ecosystem and they remain passionate about it, so they stick around. I don't think that's going to be any different, and I don't think we would have a lack of talent because we aren't paying enough. All right, so I don't want to get completely off this topic because in Shark Bites, Rob does have a few things that he wanted to mention as well. But after that, we're going to get back to all the fantastic things that we have going on in the Hedera ecosystem, from DeepIn to Hedera Gaming to everything else that's happening in the space. There is so much to be excited about in this space, and 99% of what's happening in the space is positive, is great. We just have a little course correction, I think, that needs to be made, and then we'll be back on track. So without further ado, let's get into Shark Bites. Rob, welcome back. How's your past couple weeks been?
Hey, Brandon. Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. Consensus looked like a whole lot of fun. Wish I could have been there. Yeah, and then there's loads of frenetic activity this week, of course. So looking forward to addressing it.
I will say this was the most fun I've had at a consensus event. And one of the things that I heard over and over again when talking about karate combat, some of the games we had representation from Earthlings there, they're like, hey, Hedera does fun stuff too.
Yeah. Well, May as well. Look at May was awesome, right?
Amazing.
So, I mean, what better way of attracting the eyes of the whole of the Web3 space to Hedera by having a true champion in the middle of the ring, quite standing on the Hedera logo. I mean, that's symbolic as well as the reality of Hedera services being introduced to a wider space. So yeah, very, very successful week, I think, consensus for us.
It was amazing. But I do want to get into the elephant in the room, we'll say. I already addressed this and gave my personal thoughts on this, but we've seen some, we'll say, community strife. Speaking of fighting, we've seen some frustration out there in the community, and I know that you are aware of what's going on. Do you have any thoughts from a council member perspective, or from, you have been an H-barbarian for a really long time. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been an H-barbarian longer than I've been a governing council member. So I do wear two hats here, and there has been a lot of. I mean, it's not the first time. I think the community has risen up with concerns. As a governing council member, all I can say is the foundation and the allegations are kind of separate from what what the governing council can do, because there's this decentralization, this separation. There's an expectation, of course, that the organizations within the Hedera ecosystem fulfill their duty to the best of their abilities within the agreements that Hedera has set for them. So I suspect this will move pretty quickly. One would hope it's addressed, and maybe next week we're talking about a resolution. I don't know. But these things do flare up from time to time across all ecosystems outside of Web3 as well as Web2. True leadership then steps in and addresses it. So my expectation is that leaders will address the elephant in the room. As an H-barbarian, I've been in the Hedera community since 2017. It's difficult to see. It's difficult to see that, and I know you have a position on this, but the compensation issue needs to be addressed. Any organization, whether it be decentralized or centralized, over time grows fat, makes the operations maybe go off track and needs a reset. Over many decades of corporate life and business, I've seen this time and time again. New leaders come in, they do a reset, and the organizations become fit for purpose again. I'm not saying that's the case now, but maybe there is a reset that is required to realign the purpose of a particular organization with what it needs to be doing at this point in time. That may have been different from what it was 2 years ago. So let's see. I'm very keen as an H-barbarian to see the best possible organizations within our ecosystem delivering the best possible value for the ecosystem. And they've got to be right sized. They've got to be well aligned. They've got to be connected and engaged with the community, as well as with, for Hedera, with the governing council, through Hedera to its organizations, or not, the organizations that also support the Hedera ecosystem. And maybe now is the time to determine whether those organizations need a bit of a reset. I don't know. But that's with my H-barbarian hat on, with my governing council hat on. We govern, right? So we have a board, and the board is voted into those roles by the governing council. That board then does the day-to-day work of the governing council, and we have a president who, in Charles Atkins, who runs the LLC, and oversees these agreements. And we need to, I believe, from a governing council perspective, support Charles in doing that job. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I know the community doesn't always see that, but I am confident that these things will work themselves out and pretty quickly now, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't pass any judgment on any of the individuals, and I just see this as an opportunity to course correct, and
Sure.
You always have drift, and we can get back on track and keep moving forward as the Hedera ecosystem. I know there's a lot of good things out there that we can be excited about. One of those, I'm going to take the first question from Cargar. Okay. He says, "Hey Brandon, which stock did you buy, SealSQ or WiseKey?" And it was SealSQ. That's LAES on the NASDAQ. We've been talking about this a lot, and I've been excited about the potential for transactional Internet of Things. We're going to be talking about another partnership that they've made in Saudi Arabia. We're going to talk about another one in Neuron. That's another DPIN project we have in the Hedera space. But I didn't buy all that much. This is not financial advice. I think it was trading at like $1.06, something like that, and I bought 2,000 shares. So not a huge position, but I'm excited about what they're doing, and I'm excited about their potential. So the ticker is LAES if you want to try to take a look and do your own research and check out with your financial advisor if it might be right for you. Rob, we got one more. Actually, we had a few questions around that, around the modularization upgrades that are being implemented on Hedera. For example, Dude Man 2 said, "Will the modular software upgrade facilitate parallel processing, which is a feature new layer ones like Aptos and SUI use to decrease latency for time-sensitive applications? Will the new upgrade decrease latency times for applications that require fast execution?" So, Rob, what are your thoughts on the impacts of these new features? Now, I know this is probably something I should be going to our Ed Marquez about. I know he posted around it, but I was just wondering if you caught any wind of this.
Yeah, I mean, it was discussed at length, TechCom, and the TechComs I attended that weren't in at 2 a.m. in the morning have been discussing this for some time. It's a big deal, actually. The modularization of the entire mainnet node stack, kind of a refactoring has taken place, which has the intended purpose of making it easier for developers to develop on the stack. We don't have the same problems as the other chains do, as we know, because we're a hash graph and not a blockchain. So the latency aspects are not a problem. In fact, they were dealt with in previous releases with the... So it's been addressed through successive previous releases in terms of latency changes, on disk storage and the Merkle structure that was created in order to do that. So we weren't really focusing on that, to my knowledge. I mean, maybe Ed can correct me there. But the modularization of the stack was primarily about making the so it's ease of maintenance, the ability to release new upgrades that were very focused and not broadly kind of impactful, and the engagement with the developer community. And I think there's some short-term pain in doing that because some of the services that were expected weren't released, and there was some other things, other aspects that were expected but didn't happen. So I think over time, in fact right now, it's far better than it was before. From talking to my developers, they're super excited about the this new release 5 or 0.5. I think over time we'll see the true benefits of this modularization release. Some of the expected features that are roadmap features that were expected in this release have been held back as well. So they're still subject to a lot of final stage testing, on the new stack, on the new modularized stack. So I think we can expect some feature-rich roadmap releases now that the modularization has been completed. And it's been a big effort, right? Swirlds Labs have been working on this for a year or so in order that we have a platform that enables a far greater agility when we do future roadmap releases. I'm sure Ed will give you a far better answer than that. But from a developer's perspective, from a builder's perspective, and I've got teams building across the piece, both inside AP Plus and outside. They're excited about what this means for the future. I know there's some short-term pain as well from what I've seen in Discord, but hopefully that will be resolved a lot more easily with kind of direct and smaller releases going forward.
Well, you have to break a few eggs to continue to make progress, and I think we're going in the right direction there.
Yep.
So this next one's fun, and this one should certainly be in my wheelhouse. It's DLT Better for Life, who says, Kraken sponsoring a karate combat event that is based on the Hedera hashgraph technology and is placing their logo right next to Hedera's logo. Why sponsorship if its own customers cannot purchase HBAR? Is a listing on Kraken being worked on? Big thanks in advance for Rob and Brandon. Rob, I think this is, like I said, in my wheelhouse, so I'll take this one. Yes, Kraken was the main sponsor of the Karate Combat event that we just had, Karate Combat 46. We saw their logo around. Hedera's logo was still in the center of the pit. I think this is a perfect question. So there aren't too many centralized exchanges where you can't get HBAR. Kraken is one of them. Gemini is another one. I think this is a perfect opportunity for them to take a look at it again. They wanted to be involved with the Karate Combat event because it had so many eyes on it. And you realize then that it is built on Hedera, and they should probably start to support the HBAR asset. But in addition, the token that was all about that night, the Karate token, is also an HTS token. So I think that's another one that could get listed. And as soon as you get one HTS token listed, then all of the other HTS tokens that we have in our ecosystem can be much more easily listed. The last thing that I want to touch on is I actually saw on social media that some of the main influencers in Cardano was saying that Cardano should actually go ahead and sponsor one of these events. So to have another layer one sponsoring an event that has the application built on Hedera would be invaluable. I don't know if it's going to get that far, but they were pushing pretty hard for it. They saw the value in Karate Combat, and I think it's some of the best money that the HBAR Foundation has spent. So Rob, I'm not sure if you actually caught the event, but what were your thoughts on what you saw out of Karate Combat at Karate Combat 46?
I've not been I have been following Karate Combat, but I haven't participated in Up-Only Gaming on any of the previous events. I did in this one. I put all of my 90 karate tokens on May, and I got a reward for doing it. And it was a great experience. You know, I'm not into martial arts, but I really appreciated the user experience. I appreciated the event. The eyes that we got on Hedera, that logo in the middle of the ring, you know, are invaluable. I mean, from a marketing perspective, that's gold, and probably more so than almost anything that we've done. We all know that that the H-Barbarians know how good the technology is, but you know, we've not had that many opportunities to get the eyes of the wider space onto Hedera. I think having Kraken logo beside the Hedera logo in the Karate Combat ring for consensus with the eyes of Web3 on it and Joe Rogan, right? I mean, and it's just amazing exposure. And you know, you're where are all my H-Barbarians at? You know, it's I mean, that's meme worthy in itself. And congratulations for your co-founder status as well, by the way.
Keeping a secret.
But I mean, it's true, right? I mean, that's marketing gold, and it's lightning in a bottle that needs to really, really be leveraged. I would say that the messaging around Hedera, because we're kind of, that logo is next to all the other sponsors, so we're not a sponsor. It's built on Hedera, so the messaging around, you know, this Karate Combat and all these new experiences are only possible because of Hedera. I mean, we're not just another sponsor. So I think going forward, we need to try and make sure that that message is clear for those who aren't actually participating, you know, with the app, which is, you know, beautifully designed and a great user engagement and everything else, right? So getting that message through means that we need to maybe step up a gear, and I'm not a marketing person, so, you know, clearly don't take my advice. But the mere fact that I stayed up until whenever it was 2 a.m. to watch May amazing fight. What a weapon May is, right? In all kind of meanings of the word. You know, she's a weapon for Hedera. She's, you know, Hashpack is a weapon of a product, and, you know, in the ring, she's a great champion for Hedera. So kudos to Mei Chan for everything that she's doing for the Hedera ecosystem. We need to really grasp these opportunities and ensure that, you know, the bring Cardano to the ring, you know, bring every other layer one, bring the DREC Alliance partners, bring Cardano into the DREC Alliance through that route. You know, we need liquidity in the Hedera ecosystem. We've got the best tech, we've got the best community, we've got some of the best products and solutions in the entire Web3 space. What we need is liquidity, we need eyeballs, we need these connections with the other communities. The tribalism, both inside, you know, the Hedera ecosystem and within the Web3 space, only detracts from the ultimate goal of decentralization and all the principles that are, you know, that carries. So I know you've been saying it for the longest time, and you've been you yourself have been a true champion, both for Hedera and for Karate Combat, and I kind of see it now. You know, I really, really see how all of those things come together, and we shouldn't forget it, right? Consensus is, you know, a week or two ago. Let's build on that. Let's build on all of the great positive aspects that we saw kind of in a fine point there, and see where else we can take that to. What combination of champion and Hedera solution and community outreach we can get in other aspects, you know. So you're talking about DePin, WiseKey, and Neuron. You know, it's not as exciting as seeing a fight in a ring, but for some people it actually is, because, you know, they get the opportunity of what decentralized physical infrastructure will, you know, mean. What about, you know, sort of social platforms? What about gaming, right? We need to kind of recreate these conditions for all of these aspects that Hedera is now really going to be truly leading the market in, and then drawing the other communities in, not only because their liquidity is important, but also because the relationships are important as well.
And I liked being able to highlight some of the things that were happening on Hedera live during the event.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be able to see more of that, because
you did a great job. I mean, that was amazing.
It was a blast. And what I think we can do in the future, because they have to fill the time in between the fights, and to change things up certainly helps the entertainment value of that. We're talking about, you know, bringing Twigital down there and Twigitizing a glove live right after a fight from a winner after they've signed it. I'm going to try to do that with May's gloves as well, but of course we're going to do that one offline. But hopefully we're going to be able to get those, you know, in 3D version and in NFT version on Hedera, and hopefully we can highlight that in the future down there at Karate Combat. So Rob, that's pretty much all we have for this week. We want to get more questions, so drop your questions down there in the comments. Thank you for stopping by, Rob, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brandon. See you next week.
So Rob mentioned DePin, and I couldn't be more excited about what we're seeing come out of the Hedera decentralized physical infrastructure space. One of the other things is Rob is really passionate about micropayments. I am too. And one of the most important things for micropayments is going to be Internet of Things, or actually more specifically, transactional Internet of Things. And the leader in that, or one of the leaders in that, is certainly WiseKey and SealSQ, which we've heard about a lot in recent months. Well, they already have some new information that came out in a press release. What it said is WiseKey, SealSQ, and the Hashgraph Association are to spearhead the implementation of Internet of Things and DePin, decentralized physical infrastructure network solutions, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in line with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. Vision 2030 aims to establish a sophisticated digital infrastructure for the kingdom and enhance economic competitiveness. So Carlos, who we interviewed just a few weeks ago, had a really good quote to put this in context. He said, "We're pleased to be working with two major industry leaders in Saudi Arabia to develop secure IoT and DePin solutions for retail, financial, smart cities, healthcare, industrial, transportation, and other sectors. We are now able to offer a full 360-degree solution that includes cybersecurity, blockchain, and IoT infrastructure needed for Saudi Vision 2030 digitization aims, as well as those of the MENA region in general. Now, obviously, SealSQ are moving really fast. They already have the satellites up in orbit, but having partners like Saudi Arabia who understand and are ready to facilitate their vision is invaluable, but they aren't without competition within the Hedera DePIN space. We also have Neuron. I actually think that there's more potential for SealSQ and Neuron to be collaborators than competitors. But for the latest in Neuron, let's catch up with James. He is the CEO and co-founder of Neuron for the latest. James, welcome back.
Hey, Brandon, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. We're going to jump right into this. We gave everybody kind of a heads up with the last interview we did. We posted that independently earlier in the week. But can you just give us a general update on what's going on for Neuron?
Yeah, sure. So we've been really busy the last few months, and we've basically been getting the product to now where we're launched, we're live. So you can find us on explorer.neuron.world, where you'll have the everything map with all of the different services that are currently live. Now, that's a little bit empty right now because we're literally just launched it. We've got the beta program, which we're actually starting shipping devices this week to people. So people will start receiving the devices. They will now start appearing on that map, and you'll see the sort of activity of devices. You'll see transactions happening, and then those devices will become available to third-party software. So we've got a free software that people can go and check it out and see it actually working in real time. So that's at 4dsky.com. So you can log into 4dsky, create an account, and then that will literally be taking data from those sensors that are plugged in and displaying that in a 3D environment. So it's kind of quite cool. So that's really where we're at the moment. We've done a load of updates obviously to the SDK. So the Neuron SDK allows us to basically machines and humans to be able to interact with each other and provide services to one another directly, so peer-to-peer. We've heard a lot about DePIN, and there's a lot of DePIN networks out there. I kind of like to call some of them, they're actually CPINs because they're quite centralized. And what Neuron does is it enables you to actually integrate the SDK into the device at the edge. And those devices can actually then transact device to device without having all of that data being sort of pulled into a central server, which is a way a lot of these DePINs are working. So what we're trying to do is to decentralize DePIN really and this is one of the big steps that we need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the real point is that decentralization. So you talked about that beta. I've been talking about it recently, but I want to get into some more details. Can you talk about that onboarding process? Run us through what it looks like for your potential testers.
Yeah, sure. So when someone wants to get involved, they need to go out and order a device. And at the moment, we've got one device available. We started off with aviation as our first use case. We'll be diving into other use cases in the future, whether that's physical resource, digital resource, or human resource networks. But for now, we're focusing on this aviation use case. And so you can come through our beta program, which we've got around about 60 participants coming through that at the moment. We have a wait list to be able to get hold of devices. So if you're interested in getting hold of one, then you can put your name on the wait list and we'll try and go and get you in as soon as we can. But when you receive your device, you then need to connect it into the network. You need to enable it so it can transact directly with other third-party software. And so what you do is you need to go in and register an account. So you can do that at explorer.neuron.world. You log in, create your account, set up all your device details. So you can give it a name and a few other parameters you can set through that journey. And what that will then give you is for your device, you will get the Hedera account number and you'll get a private key. And those two details can then be integrated into the device itself. So the device that you're purchasing, which is a flight tracking sensor, it has its own sort of UI, which allows you to configure some things on the flight tracking device. It's actually really, really cool. This flight tracking device has been around for years, and it's a really good professional device made by a German company called Jet Vision. And you go into the UI and then it allows you to insert your key and your account number. And then it just asks you a few other questions. So it allows you to set your location. And then what that does is it integrates and downloads all of the relevant software into the device, all automatically. So whenever a new update comes, it's automatically updating itself as it goes. Once you've got that software in there, it'll tell you when it's completed and give you a signal for liftoff. You can now see it in the Explorer. So you can go back to the Explorer and if you look on the map, it might take 30 seconds or so to appear, but that will then appear in the Explorer as a node in the Everything map. And now that's live. That's live. Any third-party software can now transact with your device and can basically buy your data. And if you want to check that actually working, go into 4D Sky, which is the first customer of the network. 4D Sky you can create an account again in 4D Sky, log in, and you can then go to the particular location where your device is, and you can actually see planes flying. You can see the data that's being collected by your device, and that's coming straight from your device to that software application. So any other third-party software could be able to do exactly the same.
So who are your perfect beta testers? What do they look like in terms of familiarity with Hedera, with some of these technical pieces as far as the hardware and locations and things along those lines?
Sure. So for the first 60 people, we've asked for people with quite a lot of technical knowledge. That's not because you need any technical knowledge, really. That's more because we want, we're going through a beta, and if there's problems, it's really kind of like an insurance policy for us. We've actually got a remote support function built into the device. So you can enable that. If you have a problem, you can get in contact with us. We can hop on a call. You can enable it. And then we can actually, it works over something called VPN, which some of you might be familiar with. But that's off by default. But you can enable it for remote support. So we can provide that to people who may be not so technically advanced. But for that first 60, we've asked for them to be sort of technically able, because it just helps to speed up the process. We can get some really good feedback from them. And they'll be helping us to sort of shape the direction which this product and infrastructure goes. But in terms of beyond that, really, we're currently discussing and arranging with the manufacturer that we won't actually deal with any hardware ourselves anymore. We've done this for the beta, but you'll be able to go straight to the manufacturer and buy directly from them. It will be Neuron enabled, and it will have everything you need right out the box. So by doing that, really, what we want to do is decentralize every part of this process. We don't really want to be like the owners of this device and you have to come to us for a device. Really, any third-party manufacturer could do exactly the same as what JetVision have done and integrate their own devices into the network. So we don't want to be that kind of that person who's like arbitrating who can get involved and who can't. It's really a case of, well, if you want to get involved, then that's on you. We can get in contact. We can help you if you like, but really, it's a case of it's a community-based project.
Sure, absolutely. So it's great to hear that you have a customer in 4D Sky. We've heard that Neuron is working with some other impressive entities. How's everything progressing on gaining Neuron customers and other partners?
Yeah, sure. So we've been working, we kind of did things a little bit back to front, I guess, compared to some sort of networks and some approaches people take. We wanted to go and ensure that we've seen this with some other deep in networks where they've gone out and they've put out lots and lots of devices out there and then realized actually there's not much traction for that service. We wanted to do things a bit differently and kind of check to make sure that there was actually customers for this before we start scaling to, millions of devices. So we spent a long time doing that. We went out, we've done trial after trial, we've done testing, blood, sweat and tears has gone into this. And we're now integrated with a number of unmanned traffic management systems. Also integrating with some big parties. So we're part of a forum, which is the National Air Traffic Service, along with some big players in drone delivery, some of which you may know, and one of which I believe is related to one of the governing council members. So there's some really big players in this group and this forum, and we're helping to advise and offer our input into those groups. As to how this system comes together. We've got a big demo actually coming at the end of June. So we literally are just a matter of weeks away from that. So we're very busy, as you can imagine, right now, but there's going to be about 100 different executives there. There's going to be live drone flights. There's going to be planes flying, like real aircraft with people sitting inside of them, flying towards drones in the direction of drones. And there's going to be our tracking sensors tracking all of that happening and feeding that into all the traffic management systems. So this isn't just like talk anymore. This is happening real time, and things are live and working. We still have a few hurdles to get over with the regulator, but we're in a sandbox with them. They're assisting us, they're guiding us at the moment. So we're just ticking off those checklists at the moment. So we have to provide loads of evidence, which regulators always, they're trying to look after the safety of the public at the end of the day. So they need to make sure that this is all super safe. But they really, really love our architecture because most people's architectures are centralized, so they have huge single points of failure in these systems. Our architecture doesn't have any single points of failure. So from a safety and regulator perspective, it's music to their ears.
The beauty of decentralization. So James, one thing before I let you go, I'm kind of curious, you're focused on exactly what you're working on. I know that you have a little bit broader vision for Neuron in the future, but do you think about what's going to come eventually for DePIN, or are you just focused on what you're trying to accomplish with Neuron right now?
So it's a really good question. So we're already thinking about steps 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We've already got some of those planned in. One thing that we find is that decentralized physical infrastructure networks, if you're going to communicate machine to machine, all of these machines need to know where they are, what their address is, essentially. It's like a mail system, essentially. If you don't know your address, then how can you actually send mail to people? And there's not really very, very nice ways of doing that at the moment. You have sort of some very centralized ways of doing it. You can go to somewhere like Amazon or someone like that and hit their server, and they'll tell you your IP address. And this is what's basically like your mailing address. But there isn't really a good system in the blockchain or Web3 world that allows you to do this. We've tried a few things out. Some of those things that people say work aren't working exactly how you want them to. So I think there could be an opportunity there to actually build up a very large number of nodes very, very quickly for like some IP lookup service, which would be classed as a digital resource service. So there's all sorts of stuff happening. What we're trying to do is to find a low-hanging fruit that we can use to build some of those early IT building blocks for DePIN, IP lookup, video streaming, weather sensing, GNSS networks. There's a load of things in this pipeline at the moment. We're going step by step, but the first one I talk about, IP lookup. Neuron already is using this, that we need that service for the aviation service. So you end up with services on Neuron requiring services from Neuron. So you end up with this like layering effect of services being utilized. And that's what's really going to drive the sort of avalanche and the snowballing effect of the network, I feel.
Well, James, it's great that you're looking to the future. Thanks for continuing to build on Hedera, and good luck.
Nice one. Thanks, Brandon.
So congratulations for all the beta testers who managed to get into that first round, but I know that's going to be continuing. They're going to be launching their token on Hedera here in the fall. So all the best luck to Neuron. They've had so much success to this point, and I'm looking forward to that demo that they're going to have later this month. Now, shifting gears here a little bit, Rob did mention the upgrades that are going to allow modularization on Hedera. I don't have all the details on this. I'm going to try to catch up with Ed Marquez. He should be able to give us the real inside track, but from what I've heard, this is allowing some significant developer activity on Hedera. And that has been noticed by Santiment, who tracks this kind of information. So Hedera has taken the lead in developer activity across the entire Web3 space. So congratulations to Swirlds Labs for giving the developers the tools to reach this milestone. And congratulations to all those builders that have put us in that top spot. All right, now we're going to shift gears here a little bit. We're going to get into Hedera DeFi. We are going to have lending protocols coming to Hedera, which is really exciting. It's something that we haven't had to this point. I'm going to try to do a series of a few of these lending protocols protocols. We have Serio that's coming down the line. We have H Liquidity. I'm going to do an interview with them next week. But first, we're going to get Brady. He was working for Swirlds Labs. Now he has started up a whole new platform called Bonzo Finance, and it is going to be a lending protocol. So I'm really looking forward to what he's built now that he's left Swirlds Labs. But let's get it from his point of view. Brady, welcome. Considering how long you've been in the ecosystem and how much we talk offline, it's pretty shocking this is the first time we're getting you on.
Yeah, no doubt. Super excited to be on. I've been following, a number of these that you've done in the past, and love all the work that you do.
Well, it's great that you're now building in this space. To start, can you tell us why you decided to create Bonzo Finance?
Yeah, so previously I had worked at Hedera for about 5.5 years, and Swirlds Labs, which is supporting the Hedera network. There's definitely a split, I think, in the individuals that were working at Hedera and Swirlds Labs. Some were more Web3 retail ecosystem focused, and then others were much more sort of mature enterprise focused. And I definitely fell in the former camp and had always taken sort of more of an interest on sort of the DeFi ecosystem and some of these emerging technologies and dApps that are forming around that. Bonzo Finance is an open source, non-custodial lending and borrowing protocol that is adapted from Aave v2. So Aave is one of the most utilized lending protocols on the Ethereum network. And the way that I was thinking about it is, hey, if I'm going to jump ship from Hedera / Swirlds Labs, wanting to find a gap in the ecosystem that I can go and fill to help sort of continue supporting Hedera and its network and its users, but also that has an opportunity to really be successful and make a big impact. And when you look at the DeFi ecosystem on Hedera and the Hedera network in general, there's sort of two things that I looked at that helped me identify that this was the right thing to go after. And the first is, from a technical perspective, there's a large foundation that needs to be laid in order to adapt protocols from other networks, particularly EVM networks, to the Hedera network. So things like EVM equivalence is a really big deal. All of the sort of ecosystem integrations around EVM equivalence, like JSON RPC relay and support for MetaMask and the graph. Oracles is a big one as well. And right about around the time that I left, from that technical perspective, all of those things were starting to culminate and come online and make it far more accessible for someone to be able to port applications over from another network onto Hedera. And so that technical foundation was laid, and that was fantastic. It makes it much easier to be able to bring these apps online. The second aspect of it is an economic perspective. And when you look at sort of the order of operations when it comes to lending and borrowing, when it comes to DeFi ecosystems, it starts with decentralized exchanges. Typically, when you look at other DeFi ecosystems across various networks, and decentralized exchanges lay this amazing foundation for liquidity for the network, the ability for token-based applications to thrive. It increases trading volume, retail users become very involved. And then what you typically see is lending and borrowing protocols coming online next. They're sort of that next DeFi 2.0 evolution of the landscape. And then after lending and borrowing, you have things like derivatives and perpetuals and futures, all of these sort of more complex DeFi applications. But, for Hedera, DEXs had been laid. The foundation was fantastic. Saucer Swap definitely leading the way and looking at a number of the Masari reports that have come out about the DeFi ecosystem on Hedera. And so to wrap things up, technically and economically, it just really made sense to go after lending and borrowing and wanting to do so with an open source protocol that has been really battle tested and made a big impact on other networks.
I love the fact that there's so many people who have moved within the Hedera ecosystem, but they stay within the Hedera ecosystem and continue to create great products. So let's dig a little bit more into DeFi lending. Can you explain DeFi lending, its mechanics, and why users might want to participate in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So DeFi lending is essentially using smart contracts for users to be able to bring their assets to, deposit those assets to be used as collateral, and then to be able to take out loans of other assets against the collateral that you've provided. And at its sort of bare bones functionality, it's called an over collateralized loan, where essentially you're providing more collateral or more value in that collateral than you can borrow against. So for certain assets, maybe that are quite volatile, maybe you can borrow up to 30 or 40% of the collateral that you've supplied. For assets like a stable coin, where the volatility is very low, there's a significant amount of liquidity, it's less risky, you could borrow up to maybe 80% of the value that you supplied. And in doing so, you can borrow any of the assets that are supported by the protocol. That's sort of like the basic foundations of it.
So why wouldn't somebody just use that collateral itself? Is it because they need to get their hands on a different asset to be able to do something with it? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, there's a number of different reasons why someone might want to borrow assets, and essentially, foundational part of it is they maybe are holding a certain asset. They really believe in the long-term viability of it, and so they don't want to just swap that asset for something else that they can get exposure to and use for various purposes. So what they can do is they can bring it to Bonzo Finance or any other lending protocol, retain custody of it, but supply it to the protocol and then borrow against the value of it. So they get to keep their original, but they also get exposure to these new assets. And not financial advice in any way, but one use case that I love to cite because it's such a visual use case is, let's say you hold a bunch of HBAR. And you just discovered the Karate Combat application. Big fan. I saw you on it just recently too. Big shout out there. And you want to be able to borrow karate tokens because you can bring them into the Karate Combat application. You can vote on various proposals in there for governance, and you can also bet on fighters in there. And right now it's sort of a no-lose bet system where you can place your bets on fighters, and then depending on the outcome of what happens, you could potentially win money or win more karate tokens rather. And so, that's one use case where it's like, hey, I want to keep my HBAR, I believe in HBAR as an asset, but I also want to be able to go play over in Karate Combat land. And so, karate is one of the initially supported assets that we'll have on Bonzo Finance. And it's one example of maybe a reason why someone would want to borrow.
Another example, how much of a proponent I've been of HBAR weighted airdrops. I thought that might be useful in the lending space as well.
Yeah. And we've talked about that on the side. I do think HBAR weighted airdrops will be another big one. You could, let's say you're holding HBAR X because you are receiving a healthy APY for doing so through Stater Labs. I anticipate probably folks would collateralize HBAR X, and then when these various HBAR weighted airdrops come around, they could borrow HBAR and hold that in their wallet, wait for the snapshot, and then get greater exposure to these different airdrops that are taking place. And that one's a little bit more intermittent. It's like you're kind of keeping an eye on when those activities take place and are available. But definitely see that as sort of another utility for lending and borrowing.
It brings a whole new angle and a whole new set of initiatives to the Hedera DeFi ecosystem. So next up, I want to ask, is Bonzo part of DeFi Spring that's being done by the HBAR Foundation? And how can users participate if so?
We hope so. We're definitely bullish.
Not sure yet.
I'm personally really excited about DeFi Spring and the initiatives that HBAR Foundation are doing around that. I think the timing in the macro environment is correct. They're employing a significant amount of liquidity rewards for DeFi protocols. If we can, and we're talking with HBAR Foundation about this, and the hope is that we'll be able to participate with some liquidity rewards and help really boost TVL and quickly get adoption through that program. But we're very excited about it. And then I think the other part that I'm most excited about too is Axelar and that partnership and the ability to sort of integrate Hedera into the Axelar bridging and cross-chain messaging infrastructure. If we look at DeFi Spring as a way to encourage net new users to join Hedera, to boost liquidity, to boost trading volume. As an ecosystem, bridging is just such a critical component of that. Wrapped assets that are brought over from other networks using this bridging infrastructure, if we could incentivize folks from other networks to do that and give them a reason to do so using liquidity incentives, I think that's a really strong proposition. And then obviously the hope is once they're over in Hedera land and they try things out and they realize how fast it is, the fees are inexpensive and fixed, the UI UX experience between the Hashpack wallet and Kabila wallet and Saucer Swap and all of these different applications and tooling is in my opinion a very wonderful experience. And so the hope is that they're retained as users after that.
Yeah, get those hooks in. All right, Brady, is there anything else you'd like to pass on before we let you go?
We're going to be doing a NFT sale for Bonzo Finance, and that's happening in the middle of June. And a big part of that is our allow list. So the ability to get your account ID registered for that. And we'll be using the Headstarter Launchpad for the NFT sale. To get on the allow list, one of the campaigns that we're running is if you join our Discord and you try out Bonzo Finance on testnet at testnet.bonzo.finance, take a screenshot, post it on Twitter, report back to the Discord, and we'll add you to that list. This is beneficial for two main reasons. I think the first is it really helps educate users around using the Bonzo platform and sort of more deeply understanding lending and borrowing. And then at the same time, does create more sort of community sentiment and exposure for Bonzo Finance as well.
Well, Brady, I think it really says a lot that you decided to stay here and build within the Hedera ecosystem. We're really looking forward to what comes out from Bonzo Finance. Thanks for coming on today and telling us about it.
Thanks so much, Brandon. Appreciate it.
So before we move on, I do want to say, just like with the rest of DeFi, there are specific risks that are associated with these lending platforms that you need to fully understand before getting involved. And any capital that you put up, make sure that is capital that you are comfortable with losing before getting involved. Test it out with small amounts first. Once you understand how the platforms work, you can put some more capital to work. But again, not more than you're willing to lose. So the next thing I want to get into is crypto has made it back to Capitol Hill. And there was one thing that really caught the ear of some in the Hedera community. And it was talking about token association. More specifically, they were talking about first that it is an issue that anybody can send any token to any account, especially if those accounts are associated with funds or regulated entities or whatever it may be. And it was funny because the guy that was talking about it said that there are already ways to control this. Now, he didn't say Hedera, but with Hedera's ability to limit deposits to a given account to tokens that have been associated with that account by that account holder, that eliminates a lot of these issues. But I think it's better to come from the horse's mouth. So here's that clip.
Second, the fact that somebody can send you a meme coin to your wallet, it doesn't mean that the token that represents the unit of the money market fund, which is a security, can be freely sent to some other wallet. Or
are you suggesting there's a technical solution to this, or that we will have to actually have individuals in the loop?
Technical solutions. There's other blockchains that prevent assets to be sent to a wallet unless the asset has been pre-approved, and that's something that could be built on top of a public permissionless network without no problem.
Well, I'm fundamentally dubious.
So to talk a little bit more about Hedera's capabilities, I want to go to Eric. He's the new CEO of Swirlds Labs. He has great thoughts around how that entity is evolving, new products that are going to be coming to market, and his favorite use case. So let's check out what he had to say down at Consensus.
We have here Eric. He is the new CEO of Swirlds Labs. Eric, we just met for the first time in person the other day, so it's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Thank you for having me here.
Of course. So the first question I have for you is, you've just started as a CEO several weeks ago. Mm-hmm. How has that first several weeks gone?
It's been really exciting. So we've done a lot of new things within Swirlds Labs from an organization point of view, but also from a go-to-market point of view. We are starting to build new products and services to expand the reach of Hedera beyond what we are doing today, and so we are really excited about those things.
Absolutely.
Just in 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the next thing I want to ask you, usually when you take over a role like that, you have some things you want to change. Is there anything that you want to change within Swirlds Labs or things that you're focused on right off the bat?
I think we changed already a few things within Swirlds Labs. We changed the way we go to market for ourselves as Swirlds Labs, but for Hedera as well, and focusing more on the enterprise market, because that's where we get a lot of traction, a lot of revenue, really. So that's number one. And then number two is also changing the mindset around acceleration, right? So we keep talking about accelerate the future with Hedera, and what I'm trying to push the team and the ecosystem is to actually move faster. Yeah. Right. So I said, lead first, and that's number one. So take the lead, lead others, which is very important when you're in the blockchain ecosystem, but any ecosystem. And we can talk about direct about leading others. Sure. Right. That's
exactly.
A really good example. Yeah. Move faster and be efficient. And I'm a tennis player, so it's exactly what I do when I play tennis. I move faster. I lead others in my team. I'm trying to move faster, even though I'm getting older, and I'm trying to be efficient with my energy.
Yeah, and that's how you win, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you talked about some of those products. Can you tell us about any of the things you have in the roadmap from a development standpoint of the network that you're excited about?
So what we hear from the industry, from people trying to adopt Web3, we hear them saying, I love your technology, I love your team, I love the ecosystem, but you are a public ledger and I cannot build on a public ledger because I need transaction privacy, I need KYC of the nodes, I need data residency, I need a few other things that are very specific to the enterprise market.
Sure.
And I cannot get that on the public blockchain by design. It's not designed for this.
Yeah.
And so we have started to work on I don't want to call that a layer 2 because it's not a layer 2.
AppNet?
It's similar to AppNet.
Okay.
And it's we have a temporary name for it. We call that special purpose network.
Okay.
Which is really what it is. It's a network that you create with their nodes, with their token economics or not. You don't have to have a token if you don't want to. And with your governance structure, sitting on the exact same code as mainnet, Hedera mainnet, but you can control who runs the node, you can control where the nodes are, data residency, and you can, because it's their own network, you can protect the actual privacy of the transaction. All right. So the transaction are not visible on mainnet anymore when you do that. And that addresses the challenge that the industry is asking us to fix.
And how does that bring value to the Hedera network itself?
Great question. So you have two ways to bring value, right? So those SPNs, those network, would be anchored onto the public blockchain. So you continue to use the public blockchain for auditability, for long-term tracking, but you don't anchor every single transaction. You anchor a state of the network.
Okay.
Right. So you create a little bit of TPS, not much, a little bit of TPS. And we do have a discussion with Hedera to see how we can benefit the entire Hedera ecosystem. And if we don't find a great technical way to do this, then we can always sign a contract and say, and when we make money, you make money, right? Kind of deal. But the exciting piece is the ecosystem you're building when you do this. Because now you have partners who are trying to adopt Hedera, like custodians and exchanges and wallets and bridges and so on. And they say, well, the volume on Hedera is not big enough. But if we go to them and say, we are building this for the enterprise market and the volume of activity on those networks is going to be significant, then suddenly they're going to adopt the Hedera ecosystem because now we have clients, right? So they're going to make money by adopting Hedera, and by the extension, we are benefiting the Hedera mainnet because now they support HTS and smart contract and so on.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, and the last question I have for you, we have all kinds of use cases that are building on Hedera. Are there any that have really caught your eye that you're excited about?
Oh, I love the one that we did for Hyundai and Kia.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys know this one. This one is awesome. This is when Hyundai and Kia are delivering a car to a client, most of the time a company who's buying a fleet, for example. Those companies usually have a mandate to be sustainable. So they need to understand the carbon footprint of the car that they buy from Hyundai and Kia. And then they kind of offset that footprint by buying carbon credits, right? So how do you know the carbon footprint of that car that you just bought? Well, that's what we did for Hyundai and Kia. So we onboarded 26 suppliers of Hyundai and Kia, and Kia and Hyundai as well. And every time there is an event with a part, an assembly, a transportation of something associated with the car, we capture that event. And we accumulate those events all the way to the last mile. And because we do that, we understand the carbon footprint of every single event. We do the sum of that, and we tell you, your car has a carbon footprint of X, and if you want to offset, you can buy the carbon credit there.
So we know that Atmio is a similar type use case. Similar, and they're processing 1,800 transactions per second now on the Hedera mainnet. Are we going to see similar volume from something like this?
I cannot comment on the transaction number, but you look at the number of cars and look at the number of parts in the car, and you can extrapolate the number of transactions we expect on the blockchain, right?
It could certainly be exciting. Eric, thank you so much for stopping by and talking to us. And congratulations on the new position.
Thank you.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Now, another conversation I had down there at Consensus was with Joe from Earthlings. He had some really good insights. Now, I'm going to share that in another blog post, actually. But they also had a new fantastic trailer that came out that shows the beauty of the world that they're trying to create. So let's take a look at that. Now, I absolutely love what Earthlings is doing, but we often put gaming into kind of its own category, but it really is consumer engagement. And Hedera is leading across the board in gaming when it comes to consumer engagement, but our marquee use case is definitely Karate Combat, and they've continued to have success in their last event at Karate Combat 46. Now, I know we already talked about this in Shark Bites, but I really wanted to re-highlight how fast they're growing. So at some of the first up-only gaming events, they only had 3,400 participants, and that has increased at almost every single event, almost on an exponential pace. And at the latest event, Karate Combat 46, we're nearly to 100,000 unique players. And using what is essentially the Karate Combat DAO, they allowed voting on which was the best influencers fight. And the HBAR came out in force and got May a nice bonus. It was $10,000 in total. I believe she got $5,000, but congratulations on that, May, and well deserved. Now, the event down there at 46 was pretty special, you know, with May fighting, but she wants to do that again. I don't think it's the last time we're going to see Karate Combat at these big crypto conferences. You know, we saw it at Token 2049. We saw it down there at Consensus. We had some huge names down there at Consensus, including Joe Rogan, Mario Newfall. But I even got a chance to go in the live stream. I know that Rob already mentioned that, but I was able to give a shout out to the HBAR. So let's take a look at that real quick.
How does this compare to your crypto business?
It's easier. Crypto is so much fun, but it's a wild ride. It's a dumpster fire one day and a roller coaster the other. I'd like to shout out all of my Hashpack and Hedera fans. Thank you so much. You're an awesome community. Thank you so much. I'd also like to shout out my gym, District Warrior in Vancouver, BC, and my coach. He's the best one in the world. Thank you so much.
Well, you look phenomenal. Congratulations on the win. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for May Chan.
I'm here with my friend Brandon from Hedera. Now, our fan base is equal parts martial arts obsessives and Web3 nerds. The Web3 nerds know who Hedera is. For our martial arts fans, tell us what Hedera is and how Hedera is part of the Karate Combat family.
Absolutely. Let's start off where my HBAR variant's at. Yeah! All right. So, Hedera is a layer 1, right? So it's all about what's being built on these networks. We have all kinds of stuff. Real-world asset tokenization. We have BlackRock funds on Hedera. We have Aberdeen on Hedera. We even have WiseKey, real estate, all kinds of other stuff. We have right now a supply chain use case that is processing 16 to 2,200 transactions per second, every second on Hedera. We have satellites that are in orbit right now that are for transactional Internet of Things. There's a company that's traded on NASDAQ right now called SealSQ. They're going to have SealCoin. That's the token that's going to be able to trade between these machines. Satellites already in orbit, already ready to go, and that token is going to be built on Hedera.
Brandon, that sounded like Greek to me. I heard whiskey, but the rest of it. But this is the beautiful blend of martial arts and Web3 that we have here. And talk to me about up-only gaming. That's something you're passionate about and something Karate Combat does.
Well, I know that the whole idea of up-only gaming was to create passionate fans. Fans that would always be at every event, watch every event. And I went out and I bought a few $1,000s worth of karate. And the first event I watched after that, I became a super fan, so I knew it worked. So it's consumer engagement. Of course, Karate Combat is the first, but I don't think they're going to be the last to explore this kind of use case.
Man, Hedera plays a big, big part in the Karate Combat family, and we thank you very much. Back to you guys.
So just to be clear, I didn't get a promotion. I am not one of the founders of Hedera. That remains just Mance Harmon and Dr. Lehman Baird, but it was nice to get the promotion, even if it was just for a couple minutes. And with that, let's get into some network analysis. In terms of transaction volume, we had some ups and downs this week, starting at about 1,400 transactions per second, dipping as low as 400, and currently we're up towards 1,800 transactions per second. We also had a spike to about 6,700 transactions per second while maintaining a 3.5 second time to consensus finality. And we also created about 36,000 accounts on the Hedera mainnet just within the last 7 days. Taking a look at our fungible tokens, Wrapped HBAR took the top spot, followed by Karate, Dovu, Sauce, Energy Trade Token, Triple X, and then Memecoin 0. The top 10 is rounded out by Hashpack's Pack Token, Native USDC, and Jam. Moving down to the NFTs, H Liquidity took the #1 spot, followed by Saucer Swap's Liquidity Provider Token, the Road Code 2024 Access Card, the Wild Tigers NFT that I'm hoping is a conservation token. Then we have Valley of Dry Bones, the Times WTF, and a Lithos Rant CPU NFT. The Earthlings Bag Holder took the next spot, and I'm really surprised to see that changing hands at all. And the top 10 is rounded out by the Doctor Who Worlds Apart NFT, and finally the Not a Slime World token. And with that, let's take a look at DeFi. The total value locked in the Hedera DeFi space is at $93 million. $87 million of that is coming from Saucer Swap. HSuite lost some market share and is down to $3.8 million in TVL, and HelloSwap is the main beneficiary at $2.1 million. Moving over to the crypto and HBAR markets, a strong jobs report earlier today makes it less likely that the Federal Reserve will cut rates. And this hit risk assets pretty hard, including crypto. Bitcoin is down 3% on the day, with ETH going in the same direction, down 5%. HBAR was hit even harder, down 14% to 9.1 cents. Time will tell if this downdraft is temporary or if it will be part of something bigger. I did get a question on what HBAR's catalyst might be going into the future, and I think it's what we opened with. If the official Hedera organizations rein in spending and use the savings to help builders and bump up native staking, I'm confident that HBAR will outperform significantly. Still, breaking to the lowest point in a month isn't great. Granted, we are in a support range at around 9 cents, so hopefully we can pop up to about 10 cents soon. So to wrap things up today, we have a great opportunity to course correct, reset a little bit, and rein in some of the spending that's gotten a bit out of hand within the Hedera ecosystem. Next week, I have several interviews I'm really looking forward to. We have H Liquidity to start off. I'm going to be touching base with Kabila. Of course, we're going to get Rob back to answer some of your questions next week, so make sure to drop those questions down below in the comments. I'm going to try to get C14 and MoonPay on for a space next week. That's all we have. We'll see you next week.